What is going on, guys? My name is not Virtual Riot. My name is DeathwishBoi, and today I will give you a little breakdown of my song Just Some Color out through Illuminant Records on my own Spotify or everywhere you can basically stream music. It's a color-based track, more or less, but it started out as something different. But for this breakdown, let's just start with the drums. So as I said, it started out as something different, more lo-fi trap inspired, that was supposed to have like some color-based influences, like color-based shots in between. But with time, it started to become more of a rhythm typical color-based type of track. So I got rid of like the more intricate trappy drum sequence and changed it to something more typical dubstep, but I still kept like the trap drums themselves, like this suicide kick from like some free Suicide Boys inspired sample pack I got. I love this kick. It's really soft. It doesn't sound like a lot, but with like this fat rack on my pseudo master, it becomes a little bit thicker. Also, this snare is technically not a snare, it's a clap, or it sounds like a clap. So I just started out just making like a typical dubstep pattern, like really exciting stuff. Also, then I added like a short hi-hat because I don't like too much high-end percussive stuff. This hi-hat is also a little bit louder than I would usually make my hi-hats, and with the hi-hat it sounds like really simple, not too complicated. Like it's basically the bare minimum what you can do with like percussions. And also I added this cymbal loop just to fill out the spectrum a little bit more and the drums a little bit more. It basically hits every time the hi-hat hits as well, and it's like a Nasco loop, and you will hear the name Nasco in this video a lot because I used a lot of the stuff you can find on his Patreon. Shoutouts to Nasco. I also learned a lot about sound design from Nasco, so you will also see some techniques I learned from him in this specific track. So it's really basic, it's not too interesting, it's like just this. Also, when you do your drums, you might be better off just using like good loops instead of, you know, placing everything yourself, except you go for something really specific. But in this case, for example, I just didn't go too wild. Sometimes the kick has some additional hits to accompany whatever the bass is doing down there. So like in this instance, see, nothing too complex, nothing too wild. Sometimes I even kind of notch back to the more trappy style just to revert it back to the typical kick, snare, or kick, clap in this instance type thing. I also don't usually work a lot with fills, as you can see, so the drums are really bare bones and simple and nothing to write home about. It's not that deep. So we now come to the melodic components. Because they're also not that interesting necessarily. It's just 3 layers of different stuff. The first layer is just this square wave plug I made with wavetable, going through like some sterilization, some filtering with the reverb, also going through chroma. Everything except of the drums goes through chroma at some point because it's color based after all. I might not remember everything I did, but yeah, this is just, you know, you see, just F minor, F, A, D, F, A, D, F over and over again. Not too, you know, daring. It's just this. Because I wanted like something that rises up all the time. It's just doing it's just sprinkles basically. The sample down here is a resampled serum patch I found. It's not one I made. It's a virtual riot patch that does some octave randomization on some Glockenspiel type sound. You will hear it because it will sound more complex than it is. I was just playing the same melody over and over again. And it worked really well. It's more like just a sine plug. And then down here we have the chords. I am not good at writing chords. And it's, as you can see, if I turn off the scale, it's just F minor with the 7th and the 9th, and then D major, 7th, 9th, F minor, D major, or D flat major, then G minor, A major, A flat major, B flat minor, and E flat major. Not too interesting, but it works in this instance. And you don't hear these chords too much, actually. It's on its own, it's also like really boring. It's just... So basically it's just, again, a square wave with some filtering going on, nothing much else inside the patch itself, not even multiple voices, like no unison at all, like a little bit of Combs filtering for sterilization, a normal bandpass filter going into a reverb, EQ, delay, another EQ that opens up over time just to give some sense of elevation. It's the intro sounds like more than it actually is. Now we can get to the interesting part, the basses and the drops. This now might be a little bit convoluted and I will jump around between different things, and I'm so sorry for that. I hope I can save that in post. I will probably be a little bit too lazy for that, and so you saw a text like "nuh-uh" or something popping up. But yeah, these are, for my production style, a lot of different sounds and noises that are happening specifically in the bass group. So let's start with just listening to the drop itself, and maybe I'll get an idea for where I want to, or what I want to show you specifically just right now. So this is the drop. Yeah, that essentially was the first drop. As you hear, there are a lot of different sounds happening, so let's minimize everything that is not used in the first drop, so I don't skip over something I don't necessarily want to skip over, because that would be annoying in post. Let's start with this sound, which is like a typical growly type sound, but there are some interesting techniques, I suppose, that I used, and this is made in Serum. Serum 2 wasn't out yet, so it's still Serum 1. We got a sub that gets automated by the first LFO. We got a complex waveform made by Nasco. You can get it on his Patreon. Again, shout out Nasco, which is also automated with the level. The second oscillator, though, does something interesting. You see this particular shape. You can change the shape of wavetables by going into that like pencil symbol, or sometimes I don't know what it is on other skins. Then changing the grid by holding shift and dragging up and down the grid, you can change both dimensions at the same time rather than just, you know, doing one and then the other. And then you just draw a curve by just clicking and dragging, like just make a curve, and then choose one of these and go over the curves just to smooth them out a little bit. And it doesn't have to be too precise with that. So we get this shape that we then AM to the first oscillator on 50%. What that does is it lets sound through at this, like in this shape, and adds silence at this shape to turn this waveform into something more like a transient, or that has a transient. So because this now will work as a transient and there will be silence, without changing the size of the waveform, just to make it a little bit more gnarly growly. I also added like a little coarse pitch automation with LFO3 on the oscillator to get like some washiness. So without this waveform and with the pitch automation, sounds like this. And without the post-processing I'll get to, it sounds like this. You see, it's like a washy sound. I love sounds like this. Without the coarse pitch modulation, it sounds like this, which is also a cool sound. You can do some cool stuff with that, but I wanted something more washy, something more like whew. And with this wavetable amped to the first wavetable, it sounds like this. You see how it's a little bit more growly, a little bit more, you know, just transient-y, not necessarily clicky, but I mean, I would describe it as that. That goes through the band notch filter, a great filter, just to shape it a little bit. Everything else is controlled by LFO1, except of the wavetable position, which I use LFO2 for. With wavetable positions, I usually like to have just a ramp, so we don't get the typical cycling forwards and backwards, but just cycling forwards. So for post-processing, there's just a phaser, accentuating the movement, rate all the way down, depth all the way down, feedback all the way down, phase doesn't matter too much, and then automating the frequency, just how you would with a filter, because phasers are essentially also a specific kind of filter. Then I filtered out some of the super lows and some of the lower mids with like notch filters. As I said, I love notch filters. Then I put like a multiband compressor on that. I put the release all the way up all the time. It's like the same as increasing the time in OTT. It just makes it more snappy. And to additionally narrow it down, make it more snappy, I changed, like I added this distortion, got a little bit of distortion in obviously, and changed this mode to level. If you click down there where it says mix, you can change it to level, and then I automated the level with the first LFO as well, just to have the sound shut the fuck up if I wanted to shut the fuck up. There's also some reverb throws happening in here, that's why you hear this like reverberation. After the initial patch, we have this snap heap, which also does something really interesting I figured out while making the sound. First of all, there's some sort of fat rack. It's just basically OTT with some additional OTT. Like these are pre-made EQs you can use to go in and clean up some frequencies, but this sound didn't need it. And then some, yeah, you know, distortion, limiting, and a multipass that's sort of just working as a clipper. It's a NASCO rack basically, as you can see, NASCO right there. But after that, I put two shifters in parallel. Also, I put them in parallel to the fat rack because I didn't want the shifted versions of the signal also fattened up. I just want them as additional layers that just beef up the sound on their own a little bit. And one of them is just pitch shifted downwards 500 hertz, and the other one is pitch shifted upwards 500 hertz, as far as I know, just to have like a higher layer and a lower layer from the same sound, and it makes it sound like this. You see how it's way denser, way thicker right now. After that, I put it through chroma. It's put to the key of your track. In this case, it's F minor. I chose pentatonic because it's the most harmonic out of all of these. I could have also go in with natural or Phrygian dominant. Nowadays, I would usually put chroma on the whole bass bus, but back then I was putting it on every individual sound. High quality mode, because I wanted high quality. It just introduced less artifacts. Nowadays we have also this gate and stuff, but I feel like it would change the sound too much. Something I haven't said in the beginning, I will also put out a sample pack, or just the bass one-shots as samples and maybe some bass flows as samples that you can download in the description below. And I top it off with another plugin that NASCO made. I don't use this spectral compressor anymore because we have newer ones, but I don't want to go back and change stuff. Essentially what it does is it's like like an OTT of sorts, but with like 512 bends, and it doesn't work on the basis of filters, but like FFT bends, which means you introduce some latency, but it's zero phase other than OTT. And with this version, you can draw your own frequency response curve, which in this case is supposed to get more of a pink noise tone. And I boosted the sub because I always boost the sub with my sounds. Like I always have a lot of sub going. Also, it has a spectral clipper, so if you distort something in here, it doesn't matter, it gets spectrally clipped and it doesn't actually clip. Percent smooth almost all the way up. I usually have a higher release, but it worked with a lower release in this instance. But as I said, I don't use this version anymore, but let's leave it on there for now. So another sound that plays at the same time to get like a little bit of the rhythm going is this serum sound up here. To do like the chop chop, like a little choppy chop chop. Post-processing is most of the time the same. This ring mod will become important later in the third drop. Right now it doesn't do anything. It's just so I can layer this specific sound later on with another sound that's only playing in the second and third drop, and only in the third drop it's layered with this bass. And ring modding something else to something is a nice way of safe layering without fucking up your whole sound, because it makes it so the waveform of something else gets imprinted on this one, so it carves its physical room inside another sound. So the sound itself is very similar to the other sound. I just got rid of the coarse pitch modulation. I got rid of like the transienty stuff. As you can see, I tried using that, but all these serums are coming essentially from the same patch. It's just a variant of that and changed a little bit. As you can see, also the level automation in the effects tab. Same filter, just different wavetable. Basically the same post-processing all the way through, except of these BS audio right here. I wanted to make it less wide because it was annoying later on. So basically the same sound. Then we have this sound, which is one of the first ones I started with. You can see that by that it's a faceplant patch. It's just a wavetable going wild with harmonic and pitch, which is controlled by this motherfucker right here. Also this other wavetable. It's just supposed to be like high, kind of washy sound, and these wavetables go through N bass design, also a rack made by Nasco. Where you can put your own effects in here, but you have like a little selection of different filters you can use that are pre-made. It's just filters, how you would expect them from Serum. This rack is just there, so you have a similar workflow to Serum. I don't use that anymore because I got more used to building everything from the ground up, but in this instance I was still using that. And I also initialized my own filters in there, like a lot of the combs filters. Then I put it through another combs filter, but this is only for sterilization. As you can see, turn on stereo, put it to minus, put the mix down, and put the hertz to somewhere in between 150 to 250, and it will sterilize your sound essentially. Through a convolver, which uses a Nasco bass one shot as the sample stretch, 36%. This is where you just experiment around, you know, with different convolvers. Here's small squish, disperse, 20, all good stuff. This is just a little post-processing thing with a little bit of dispersion. Two basically OTTs, then some high pass, and again you can use with the amp, I suppose. And this here is just a thing that adds a dedicated sub to your sound by utilizing lots of distortion filtering and then putting it through a ring mod to kind of force it to a node that correlates to the input MIDI signal. You can get this rack on Nasco's Patreon as well. As I said, I don't use that anymore, but it helps a lot. At least it helped a lot when I was learning faceplant for the first time. So in this sound down here, basically is also one of the first ones I used for this track. And as I said in the beginning, it was supposed to be like really simple, really chill, hip-hop, trappy, lo-fi type of stuff. That's why this bass patch is just a really sine wave-esque wavetable, not even moving too much, going through N bass design again, and most of the sound happens with like the fetch-rater to add like some noisiness, and then going through this convolver again. Convolvers are great for bass music. I would also use that for like some sharks-esque drops, I guess. Lots of filtering, different filters. It's also a thing where I would say just experiment around. Usually bandpass and notch filters work well. Then I got some high with the bandpass, like high pass and bandpass. Then a combs, which is basically just two filters that kind of restrain the region where you want the resonators to grab the sound, and then the resonators just make it have a specific tone. Then a disperser. You can also just use a disperser. It's basically just a disperser. Yeah, again, same rest of the rack. Then it goes through N space, which is a really cool reverb rack, if you will. It's not just reverb, it has also like this snap peep which says shimmer to get like the high-end shimmer, which is just pitch shifting it upwards 12 semitones like 2 times in a row from a specific frequency region. Then going through a chorus reverb filter, another filter to kind of reduce the overall bandwidth of the reverb to control it a little bit more. Going to a gain where you can then say, okay, make it louder, make it quieter. And I automated the mix to make the reverb shut up when the sound ends. Basically, that's why I love Faceplant, because you have way more control over everything by utilizing different envelope LFOs. Down here, it's just some old samples I made. They also go through chroma, F minor, pentatonic. All of these chromas are dialed to F minor, pentatonic, and I believe also the color setting is the same for each of these, so it's not too deep. This sound down here is one that Danny Demand made. It sounds like this. You don't hear it a lot, and I somewhat didn't change the initial patch at all, I believe, so I won't give away what it exactly does, because it's not my sound. It just goes through chroma, auto pan for the volume automation so it flutters, cut the lows, put the snap peep in to get N sub, Nas goes sub, rack to add in another sub, because I didn't like the sub the initial patch had. But thank you Danny Demand again for this really cool sound, and please don't be mad that I used it. And it's also here, just does this high note. It doesn't, you can't even hear it in the whole context of things. Yeah, that concludes all the sounds for the first drop. So we can go to the second drop. And the second drop now has some sounds that come in as well, as I was saying before, and it's these serum sounds. Essentially, these two, 13 and 15, are the same sound, and it's just a FM wavetable getting FM'd by a sine wave, going through a band notch filter, going through EQ, compression, and some distortion, also with the main LFO on level. The second LFO is just doing what exactly? Wavetable position. So basically this sounds like this. To give the second drop more like a melodic dubstep vibe. And as you could hear, this sound up here is the same as down there. It's just that it doesn't do like the LFO shenanigans like with the volume, but it's more sustained. So I just changed the shape of the LFO. The rest is basically the same. Oh, it also has a comms minus filter. No, it's turned off. Ignore that. It's not even on. It's layered with another sound that Omega Mode made. It's just some annoying high-end thing just to accompany the sustained sound and make it a little bit more epic and cool and sparkly, whatever. Going through snap heap without the frequency shifting up and down. Chroma again, going through spectral compression, and then some EQing. The EQ becomes important in here. As you can see, there's the automation for the EQ, so it does like this movement like this. As I said, this same sound with some LFO automation. Then this drop in particular is longer than drops usually are, because you have these 3 bars of melodic dubstep, but it's 3 bars. And I needed to resolve this melodic tension, and I thought I resolve it by changing back to a more rhythmy pattern, but only having it 1 bar long would also feel weird and unresolved. So it's like 3 plus 2, and then it changes back to the rhythmy part for 2 bars. So it's basically again 3 plus 2, and then the second drop ends. So it's basically 6 plus 4 equals fucking 12. Yeah, 12. No, fuck. How am I so stupid? It's 10. Is it 10? It's 10. It's 10. I leave that in, okay? You can see my bad maths. So 10 bars, or if you don't count in half time, it might be 20. Anyway, then we have like a little bridge section, which is just all the intro shenanigans again, but the rhythm type continuing into the third drop. My favorite drop, and this is where I said where this ring mod will become important, because now I layered this sound with this sound down here, which is the same as the sound that got introduced in the second drop, but yet just adjusted a tiny little bit, not even I guess, to do another specific movement. So we can have this. And they mix so well because I imprint the wave response of this into this one by ring modding it. So I can have both of these sounds and not clash. Here I just changed the octave of the FM oscillator by 1. I just increase it to +4 instead of just +3, so it sounds higher. Then there's also this sound. We have talked about this sound already. The next sound I haven't talked about is this one. But it's also just like a tiny little bass shop, also based on all the others, you know, same patch, just a little bit, you know, changed the wavetable around, added another effect, in this case like a chorus, a really fast chorus with a really low mix. So the idea is that I have this more, I would say, bro steppy section. That then changes back into the rhythm type of stuff. But before it does that, I kind of try to go a little bit of a tarot route. Obviously this is color based and it's cutesy music, so it's not really tarot, but you get what I mean. It's like with the triplets and like more percussive hits, like back to rhythm, and it almost sounds like there is chords going. There is no chords going on in here. It's just this other sound. That's also one of the first ones I made for this track. As you can see, a different wavetable. I used the shift on this one, the same patch, just a little bit adjusted, so it does like, it essentially makes a little bit more sound, a little bit more noise. And then we go back into like this. And that's basically how it ends. It's not that complicated, it's not that deep. It sounds like there's a lot of shit happening, and don't get me wrong, there is, but it's not that deep. So at the end, I just want to get on some like general miscellaneous production techniques. In this case, for example, my bass group processing, which is just another spectral compressor to glue everything together and make it bad. After that, there's a reverb fill by Mr. Bill. Shoutouts, Mr. Bill. Please put in your nose ring again, because then we can twin a little bit, please. It's a great rack. I use it for reverb throws a lot. And the Mr. Bill group sidechain, which is just more convoluted way of using compression sidechaining. Put it like to your kick and your snare and you're done, you're good. good to go. There's obviously some saturator and drum bus to make it more snappy. I suppose it just works. It's great. And then an EQ to narrow the frequency range, widen it up for different sections, you know, transitions when I want to get rid of the lows and the highs, you know, filtering stuff, the usual. That's the whole track. As you can see, it's not a lot of layers, it's not a lot of tracks, it's like 32, but I like it, and it sounds like more than it actually is. So thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something. Remember to get the samples down in the description below, and have a nice day, have a great time. And if you ever use one of these samples, one shots or whatever, contact me on Instagram, show me what you made. I would be really interested what people make with the stuff I made. So thank you for watching. This hasn't been Virtual Riot. I'm DeathwishBoi, and I'll see you next time.